everyone, welcome back to Attacker 2. So last video, which is the first video of Attacker, we covered the variations. When white makes a inaccurate invasion, we kick and jump, and we are able to follow our principles, that is to attack to make cash or make profits, right? So one of the possibilities is for us to play out like this, and it's easy and simple, right? This game is just beautiful for black because comparing the efficiencies, white is very behind. So I hope you guys had a chance to play this in the game, or play this kind of similar situations, and you're able to make use of your principle one. Well, of course the story does not end here, because there are more skeptics going on, right? So white is not so happy with the outcome, and white, which is your opponent, which also happened to be a big fan of my channel, hypothetically, he has watched all my Invader series, and he's a god of invasion, and he knows my principles of Invader, which is the counterattack, which is attached to your opponent, and which is to find moves that gives you as many options as possible. So these players are very annoying, and you know why? Because they have watched my Invader series. So they're very good, they're very annoying, very hard to defeat. So today we'll look at some of the harder to deal with response when it comes to this local variation. The first thing for white to think about is, before you get attack me, let me attack your corner, right? Let me follow the principle of counterattack, and let's jump directly into the corner, making sure that black cannot gain any territory, right? I want to invade the side, I want to invade the corner, and you black, you just don't deserve anything. So against this move, the first thing that we have to do is to not back down, right? Any variations like this would really lead to disaster, especially this one, right? If you just go for the textbook, white is able to gain a lot of profits in Sente, and as I've covered many times, this is not acceptable for black. So what are some of the principles that we gotta follow when our opponent counterattacks us? Well, the first principle against counterattack is to not back down, and it's to always make sure that you separate your opponent's group, right? That you fight as hard as you can. The first move must be to descend at S15. This move decreases the potential for white to make ice space and also pressures the corner. White will follow up with the peep. When black connects, white's correct move is to play a Kosumi. And now black can squeeze from the outside. This is a Sente because white has to connect here. And then black is going to jump at M17. So this is a very accurate variation for both sides. But of course my main topic is not to focus on these technical or tactical variations. Rather, this is to show you the idea of how to deal with counterattacks. It's for us to be very solid, first of all. It's for us to remove our weaknesses, and also making sure that we cut our opponents into two pieces. So at this point, white is facing a very challenging game, because if white tries to run this group, the corner is going to suffer a lot, because black is going to follow up with this variation, and then black can obviously just play a tiger's mouth. So black is really strong, towards the left side as well as towards this group. White, on the other hand, has to pretty much just live all on the second line. Sure, white has destroyed everything in the corner, but the compensation for black is just way too big. So black can now follow up with a very asphyxiating move that just really prevents any ice space, and it's looking at a cutting point in this area. So this would be a very, very nice and lovely game moving on for black. Well, why is that? For my viewers who still don't see that, is because we can go back to our principle one. We are attacking white to make profits, right? So for example, if white just keeps running, there's already profits that we can immediately take. That is to capture the entire site. But let's say if white does somehow follow up, black is going to extend out, and then black can attack whichever way he wants, right? He can attack like this, forcing white to run in this way. So later on he can expand this part of the board. Obviously he can also play the knight's move. This is also generating profits for black on the bottom side, right? The profit is not necessarily obvious, but it's influence. So influence is also profits. It doesn't necessarily have to be territory. And white is just always in this weird state of having to run. Black can just go ahead and start generate more profits, right? Follow tightly with our principles. And this is just a pleasant game for black moving on, because white has to pay for this group pretty much all game. So the conclusion being, at this point, the problem persists for white because of black's accurate play. That is, first, to separate the groups. The second is to make sure that he does not have weaknesses. Let's say, for example, if black encloses here, that leaves a small weakness over here that white can later on exploit. So a better move is for black to just jump like this. If white extend now, then we can be very patient, right? Look at every single move that black plays. It's not to rush to attack white, because the more you rush, the harder it is to actually for you to capture properly. Instead, black remains very patient, fixing the weakness over here. If you don't fix, there's immediately a cutting point. So black, with a beautiful move, fixed the weakness, because now if you do this, you might get laddered here. So not only fix the weakness, but as we can see, there's more and more pressure on the way. So do you run or you don't run? If you don't run, black's next move is going to be like here. So that just looks kind of scary for white. But if actually white decides to run, he will be facing the same problem. That is, he has to constantly pay for his debt over here. And black can rely on the principle one, that is to make profits, that we talked about last game. So counterattack is obviously always a great idea when you are under attack, when you are invading. Whatever I said in an invader video remain true. The only problem is that in our case, white started with a mistake, right? So it is very hard to actually mitigate this mistake just with counterattack. And actually, this counterattack is slightly premature. So let's look at some of the other examples of white's counterattack, right? So we also covered when white jumps here, I recommended this move for us to follow principle one, generate profits on the bottom. White decides to hop out, and then we decide to generate more profits. So every single move follows our principles. So now we'll be looking at, what if white counterattacks at M16. This move not only generates influence towards the left side, but also pressures black's corner. So this is an excellent move. But now black needs to figure out how to defend against this kind of counterattack. So the correct move for black is to follow our principle of splitting white into pieces, of actually counterattack the counterattack. So really on the game in the game of Go, like a lot of solution is violence for violence. It's really a lot of times fights happen because neither side can back down. And that's just the game of Go, right? That's why it's very exciting and why it's such a fun game to play. White needs to protect the weakness, and then black makes use of the attach. So if white harness, black is going to extend, and now we can tell that this group is under a lot of attack. Also, there's a severe cutting point that white must fix right now. So after this move, black can keep splitting up the groups and then follow principle 1. Right, as we can tell, the bottom side is getting larger and larger. And what is so great for black is this group is never in complete security, right? There's never two clear eyes, although it does look like white is not going to die. So that's our second, against a counter attack like this. If we get scared and we decide to back down, well, this just I guess this is okay. It's a solid move, but when white hops out here, white start to generate influence towards the left side. So the game becomes a lot closer, and we lost the initiatives. So the best way against counterattacks a lot of times is remain very solid and to counterattack the counterattack. So to make sure that white has lots of weaknesses. So lastly, the last thing I want to point out is what happens if white decides to counterattack at R8, right? Things like this. This would be kind of like an exercise that we can do together. So you can feel free to pause the video and think about it. Okay, welcome back. So as you have probably already guessed, right? If we passively defend with this move, white is able to actually attack and crosscut, and this becomes very hard to deal with. So instead, a correct move comes from the correct idea, that is to split white into two parts and then attack on each side. This is a very, very important idea that we'll repeatedly cover in our attack series. Following this, white needs to immediately deal with these two guys. If he doesn't, already there is the potential to die in here, right? There's already very serious moves like this, right? When you play this one, I can attach here, and then white is kind of in trouble. And also, maybe this kind of move also makes white very uncomfortable. So these two guys, if they need to run, then we can very nicely follow our principle 1, generate profits while attacking. When white hops out, we hop out, and when white hops out once again, we can hop out once again. Very clear idea. Our group is a very nice group that splits white into halves, and white has to deal with both groups, and therefore our idea remains very, very clear. That is to generate profits on the top side and on the bottom side, and then we have the momentum, and our game is just very pleasant moving on as black. So lastly, I want to leave you guys with an exercise that I won't really solve with you guys. That is for white to counterattack at R6. So what should we do when white plays the R6? Right. So as long as you follow the principles that I've discussed, that I've talked about today, you should be able to solve this problem very, very easily. So go ahead and give it a try, and I'll probably talk about it in our next video. So feel free to comment below the video as well as to what you think black should play out. So write out a maybe 3 to 4 moves sequence, or your suggested variations, so we can so I can answer them in the comment sections. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. But for now, talk to you guys next time.